All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for anyone joining us. I'm just on the StreamYard right now, so I'll check in a minute if anyone is joining us live, but feel free to send in any of your chats or questions to us. Joined by a few guests today. Tom, you'll know from the Yanks Go Talking podcast. He's our resident soccer nerd, astrophysicist, almost PhD, going to school here. And then Ryan, a new guest from Deutsche Yank. Did I say that right? Is my
Yeah,
German
man.
getting better?
Episode by episode, we're gonna have you fluent by the end of this.
There we go. There we go. So he's back on the channel again to talk through and break down the U.S. men's national team game against Honduras. It's just wrapped up. The U.S. has won 4-1 in San Pedro Sula. It's such an important victory. And so let's talk about just general reactions first. Just give me your take. We'll do lineups, player performances, breakdowns a bit later, but just let me know how you're feeling overall right now.
I'll jump in, and all I'd say is just what an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I think this is why a lot of us love this game. Is this can take you from heartache to elated in a matter of 45 minutes. Going into halftime, I was thinking, "Gosh, I can't believe I woke up early for this. It's going to be a really long day." And I feel like I've got enough energy now just to go run a marathon. Just so pumped, so happy we were able to salvage this, and we got a lot to fix before the next window, but hey, at least we're in shape to go forward. Tom, what'd you see?
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I have a soccer class that I go to on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I got to class right as Honduras scored, and my water bottle didn't necessarily survive. I was not happy.
You kept it as a trophy.
Half. Yeah, it's a good prop. but yeah, the second half completely different. After being in Nashville, it just feels amazing to get a result and get a win and put us back on track to qualify.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting layer to all of this. I see some comments about Greg Berhalter right now. We'll get to those. I think for me, I'm feeling very good about where the U.S. stands in qualifying right now. We've got ourselves back on track. We're tracking at the win at home, tie away mantra if you go just by points. But I don't necessarily know if the performance itself was good enough for me to be confident in Greg going forward. I'm still personally leaning towards he's not the right person to lead this team and lead us through the World Cup qualifying. Tom, how are you feeling with Greg right now, despite the result and where we sit in qualification?
I'm with you. It's not good enough. I said it. Literally, final whistle blew in Nashville, and I turned to the American Outlaws and said, I'm done. I don't want to coach anymore. Tonight, we got 4 goals in the second half. He was great at making substitutes, making in-game adjustments. But that first half, it's inexcusable. We can't play that bad in these matches.
Yeah, how about you, Ryan?
I just echo Tom. I definitely think that the first half was gut-wrenching. It was so painful to watch. We looked like we had no plan. There was no creativity. We had no passion. The same problems we've seen before, too. We couldn't connect our defense to our front three. We had nobody to move the ball, so it just turned into Route 1 soccer. Kind of looked like we were watching ASO. But, again, tip of the hat to Greg. At halftime, he made some adjustments. I think he made the right ones. I wouldn't consider myself a Euro snob, but I definitely tend to favor some of the European players. I think they play at a higher level, but hats off to all the MLS guys that came in and stepped up tonight, or products of the MLS. It was really impressive to see. I think Greg definitely saved his job, but I'm with you as well, Jake. Like, I'm not super confident in him going forward. I don't think he's shown a propensity to learn from mistakes he's made in the past. So I think he's gonna have to learn from this if we're gonna be successful going forward.
Yeah, I'm at one level very happy that we scored 4 open goals and won the game 4-1. I almost would have preferred us to win 2-1 because that was kind of the worst possible result for Greg while us still saving our qualification chances. But you know what? We hang up 4 in San Pedro Sula again. I'm not going to complain about beating Honduras away in World Cup qualifying and getting us back on track. Kevin, you said you're both here and watching 11 Yanks. We thank you very much. I know we're doing a live stream at the same time as Pete and Filippo. They always do theirs before, during, and after the game. But you know what? Appreciate the community joining us and being here. So guys, if you can hit the like button so more people can find us. So let's talk about the starting lineup. Ryan, you mentioned that the first half was just inexcusable. There was no game plan at all. That was kind of the continuation, right, from Nashville. Is we didn't even know what the game plan was for the team. It seemed like everyone was clueless as to how they were going to play, playing a different style. Everyone was doing something different. We were trying to play hero ball to Pulisic again, it looked like. What were your thoughts on just the initial tactics employed and the starting lineup that we went with?
Going into it, I thought three at the back was going to be a good idea. That quickly turned out not to be, but I think it was more or less people just not understanding what their roles were. It really looked like we were in kind of like a 5-2-3 sort of, because we had Acosta and Sands sitting back, both defensive players. So the moment you saw that formation without like Pulisic kind of sinking into that center attacking mid spot, you kind of knew that there wasn't going to be any way to link up play through the middle. It kind of left us with no options. And then we also, you could tell, weren't on the same page of, are we going to play through the back, or are we going to try to play through the middle and kind of connect passes? Or are we just going to, like you said, kind of route one, kick it long and see what happens? So we didn't really have the greatest start to the game. Thankfully, it definitely worked out in the end. But again, this is going to be a huge moment for Greg to sit back and look at tactics and just know that we're really missing players like Musa, Green, De La Torre, players that can connect the ball through the middle. Player selection is going to be really important for the next window.
Yeah. Can I stop you there? I know, Tom, you
Yeah.
probably have your own thoughts as well. The roster selection and the roster construction is one of the most concerning things for me about Greg and his coaching. It's, yes, it's in-game management. Yes, it's picking the starting lineup. Yes, it's substitutions. But the roster that he brought to the Gold Cup, I mean, Jonathan Lewis is going to stick in our minds forever as U.S. Men's National Team fans. But here, too, like not bringing a replacement for Weah, for Reyna. He only brought in Jackson Ewell. Is like a joke
Yule.
towards the U.S. community. Like he was just doing everything he could to piss us off. So yeah, that's just another thing. It's outside of this result. I don't necessarily. I've lessened my opinion, if anything, of his roster construction. But Tom, let me hear your thoughts on just that starting lineup and how we came out.
To me, it felt like an emergency 11. It felt like, okay, we don't have Dest. Yedlin's played a bunch of minutes. Acosta's played a bunch of minutes. We got to roll with him again, though. We don't have Reyna. It just felt like he was just throwing anything at the wall and hoping it stuck. We threw out three defensive mids. Adams as a wingback, started Bello as a young kid. I don't understand the midfield construction at all. It just didn't feel well put together and felt like Greg was desperate.
Yeah. And for me, Adams always has to be in the middle. That's by far his best position. You could even see that in the second half, just how much better we looked when he moved from right wing back into the middle of the park. And yeah, that second half was huge. Yeah, maybe we can credit Greg a little bit for the substitutions, but man, oh man, did it just seem like he was throwing things at the wall, throwing wet spaghetti until it stuck, and just seeing what worked. But for you guys, like, what actually changed in that second half to make us go forward and conquer Honduras away?
I think one of the biggest things you could see is, they're definitely playing the ball, switching the ball more often from side to side. Anthony Robinson, it's undisputed at this point. He is our starting left back. I don't think that should be questioned by anybody. Not only is he really impressive going up the wing, but you could see on two occasions in the second half, dude's got wheels. So if we are playing against a team that countered, he can really get back and help cover us defensively. So I think switching to four at the back and then pushing our two fullbacks up and actually switching the ball to try to stretch Honduras made a big difference, opened up some spaces. Pulisic, I think, looked really good before he got hurt. He was able to drive into the middle, kind of create space. There was a few times I want to see him stop trying to do it all himself. There was a couple times I thought he could have laid it off and played people through. But besides that, I think it was really just switching the formation a little bit, and then actually switching the ball to open up spaces.
Yeah, how about you, Tom?
Yeah, I think Mo Adu mentioned it on the broadcast how much more comfortable he looked in a 4 instead of a 5 at the back. How that opened up the game, allowed us to get forward. And I'll echo Ryan's point on Anthony Robinson felt like a winger substitution instead of a wing back substitution. Getting him on for Bello was insane. It changed the game completely. That's a great move by Berhalter and does just sort of cement Robinson's place going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Let me get to some of these super chats before we have this next conversation, but I want you guys to be thinking about who your man of the match was as we go through these. So Preston, my day one homie on the channel, says big win, poor first half, great second. Everyone, if you like this stuff, join the Patreon and get access to the Discord for live game chats. Yeah. So, I mean, credit to the 3 Patreons that are on the Discord chat right now. They gave me some suggestions to make a game day chat, and we had a lot of fun. There's only a few of us there right now, so Ryan, Tom, I'll have to add you guys in, but thanks, Preston, really appreciate it. It was it's nice to be smiling after a US game finally. Big props to you, Jake, always excited for your analysis, and we'll happily betray 11 thing. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I hope that this is a learning experience for Greg, because as much as we might all want to see Greg gone and a new coach to come in, this was probably enough to keep him in the seat through the October window at least. And if we're that far along, I doubt that we make any changes. I think this was kind of the last chance for a poor performance to make a change, because once you're in October, you're 6 games in, you have 8 games left in qualifying. And that's not a good look for anyone if you're changing coaches at that point. So guys, Tom, let's lead off with you. Who was the man of the match?
I'm going to go Ricardo Pepi. I feel like it has to be him, right? He was so good in the second half.
Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, I would echo it. I think man of the match has got to be Pepi. He was amazing. Really, you could see he was one of the few players, even in the first half, that was chasing down every ball. He was hungry. He wanted it. I mean, he looked like a new guy out there that wanted to prove himself. And I think he's definitely put his name in contention for the October window to be our starting number 9. Other people that I think really stepped up and played big that people maybe aren't paying as much attention to, though. Mark Mckenzie was a beast in the back tonight. Really, in the second half, he shut down that left-hand side. With Anthony pushing forward, you had to have someone strong behind him, and I really want to tip my hat to Mark Mckenzie. I thought he played great.
Yeah, it's tough with Mark Mckenzie and Miles Robinson having the performances tonight, and then John Brooks not having the best night himself. He's by far and away our most talented center back. I don't think I'm jumping to any conclusions with that. He plays in the best league out of our center back core. He plays for the best team. They're in Champions League. He's a locked on starter for that team. What is happening with him on this US team?
He just seems to be losing concentration. I mean, the 2 goals he's let in, he's just not following defenders, not making the runs he needs to make. These are things that he normally does, and just, I don't know, it's one boneheaded mistake in 2 games in a row, and it's concerning.
And also things that I see out of him too is, like you said, lapses of judgment and then kind of just turning off. And those are things you can't do during a World Cup qualifier. You've got to be on for 90 minutes. Yeah. And also too, but when you see he makes the mistakes, he hangs his head, he kind of lollygags getting back. It's stuff that, you know, before this window really started, I wasn't necessarily against it. And I saw a lot of people putting it out there that maybe Brooks should be our captain. Obviously Adams, I think, is the number 1 choice, but Brooks not a bad second. And after this window, I don't think he's anywhere near that armband, and he's got to really get it together to even be in the starting 11.
Yeah, it's really tough.
Do you guys think that? Do you think he's feeling the pressure of being one of the only people who's been there before? I get the feeling the older guys are feeling it a little bit.
I would have expected that pressure, though, to come with an increase in effort to show that here's what it takes to get results in CONCACAF. And that means tracking your defenders, running back, making an effort on every play. And especially the goal tonight, like he came up to take space in the middle of the park, which was kind of a tactics issue that he had to take that space, but at the same time, he didn't track his runner. We were playing 5 defenders at the back, and no one was at the back post. I'm not going to chase Bello for that one. That's all on Brooks. I think he is kind of faltering under the pressure, and it's tough because a few months ago he gave an interview where he said he's one of the only veterans on this team. He wants to be the captain. He wants to take that responsibility. And I can't look at these last 2 games, especially where in this game it was largely on his shoulders for the goal, and in Nashville the goal was largely on his shoulders as well. He hasn't done enough to tell me that he's ready to take that armband. And to your point, maybe even starting 11 is up for discussion. Ryan, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would say that I think he does have the experience in CONCACAF, but off the top of my head, I can't recall an away game during CONCACAF qualifying in which I was like, man, Brooks is really that guy. He really stepped up and solidified our defense. Maybe he's just a little too used to playing in a perfect atmosphere like it is in the Bundesliga all the time. So coming back into the next window, we'll have 2 home games next window. So he could be a player that we see in the 11 twice. But maybe in these away games, give me those scrappy MLS defenders or MLS products as well that are now playing abroad, and let them go down and fight for it. Some of these guys have played in CONCACAF Champions League and have been down to some of these countries before. They know what it's like. So it's not the same as World Cup qualifying experience, but still they know what the atmosphere is like. They know what the field conditions are going to be like, or lack of field conditions. And so maybe that might be a better idea going into the next window.
Man, you're starting to sound like Greg Berhalter himself.
People are going to hate me for saying this, but Ryan talking, you sound like you're making a pitch for Tim Ream to play more minutes, especially after how well he played against El Salvador.
He was great in El Salvador.
I'll tip my hat definitely to Ream in the El Salvador game. He was good in the air. He was good defensively. But going back and looking at it, I don't think his distribution was terribly good. And so if we're going to be in games where we're going to possess the ball a lot more, we need Tim to step up his passing game. I know it's in his locker. He can definitely do it. But that was just a small thing I noted out of the El Salvador game. Yeah. But yeah, don't crucify me out there. But yeah, some of these guys down there, they really showed out. And
this is a positive community.
Yes. Oh, super positive.
So before we get to like wrapping up the window and how we feel about 5 points going into October, can we just talk about James Sands for a moment as well? Coming off one of the best performances of any player in the Gold Cup, making his stock rise to the point where he's starting a World Cup qualifying game in Honduras. And he puts in one of the worst performances that I've seen from an individual on this U.S. team in a long time, maybe in the Greg era. What did you guys see from James Sands that really was missing from today?
I think he clearly was not played in his position. I really do think he was out of position. In that back 3, you see him in the very center of the field. You see him stepping up to play the 6 with 2 ball-winning 8s ahead of him. Today, he was one of those ball-winning 8s essentially in the lineup, and he didn't look comfortable winning the ball. He didn't look comfortable having that much space around him. I don't think that he can play out of a back 3 where he's not in the middle of the back 3. I just don't think that he was in the right position to succeed today.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely wasn't great by him, but I like Sands as a player. I wouldn't put all of the performance tonight on him. I think a lot of it actually does fall on Greg's shoulders. What Greg asked him to do is not the profile that Sands plays. So when you're put in a position to where you're kind of set up to fail, then he kind of did the best he could. He was slipping all over the place. He did look incredibly poor, but I wouldn't necessarily exile him from the team at this point. I don't think it was that bad that we need to make sure that he never gets called in again. But Greg, again, it's just head scratchers by him over and over again when he's playing players out of position. He's done it throughout this entire window. So hopefully this is more a learning experience for Greg than it is James.
Yeah. So while
did you guys notice during the national anthem? Sorry, we keep doing.
Go ahead, Tom.
But during the national anthem, Sands looked like a deer in headlights. Compared to the rest of the team, they were all stoic, belting it out, singing along. Sands was sitting there with dinner plate eyes, looking like he had no idea what he'd just gotten himself into by being thrown into World Cup qualifying in Honduras for his first ever away match with the U.S.
It's an astute observation. I did not pick that up, so I'll be able to go watch it back on Paramount Plus. So that'll be definitely something that I look at again.
Was it a Gio Reyna jumping at the fireworks moment that we'll look
no, it was
back
worse.
on? Worse. Okay, so let's talk about the forwards, and this will be our last conversation before we wrap up the window. Sargent, again, didn't have his greatest night. Pepe comes in, scores, has an assist, has another shot that gets put in by Leggett. Won't count on the score sheet, but it was his goal, the reason for the goal. Where do you think our number 9 stands? Who's your number 9 in a must-win game at this point?
Man, I was beating the drum earlier last time we were talking for Sargent, but yeah, tonight he hasn't looked good. I really think one of the things that highlights Pepe right now is he's really in great form in MLS as well. So it could be the kind of thing where we just need to play who's hot. If I had to start somebody in a must-win game right now, it's Josie Altidore. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally joking. Right now you got to say that it's Pepe. The way he played tonight, he definitely invigorated the team. He had more energy than everybody, and again, he's hot. I'd love to have seen him finish off that one in the first half that Sargent headed down to him, but I can't expect him to hit 100% of his chances.
Yeah, until Sargent's in better form. I do think Sargent still has a place with the team, but until he's in better form, I don't think we can go with him and start him on any must-win match roster right now. His pressing is not good enough to overcome his weaknesses in hold-up play and finishing in the final third. I will say that as good as Pepe's been, I'm still not starting an 18-year-old in a must-win match in CONCACAF, unless you have no choice like we did tonight. Can't betray the drum I've been banging for months that Giassi Zardes is still our best striker.
Here we go.
Hot take.
If you followed the podcast at all, Yanks Go Talking, you know that Tom loves a good Giassi Zardes sighting. Thankfully, no, not thankfully. He was injured for this camp. I probably would have seen him called in behind PFOC, and maybe Pepe wouldn't have gotten his chance. All right, so let's wrap up the window. We've tied away at El Salvador, tied Canada at home, and beaten Honduras away. We have 5 points because of goal differential. We are currently in the top 3 that would qualify automatically for the World Cup. We talked about after the first game in El Salvador, that tie, we would judge it based on the other results in the window. I want to hear how you guys feel before I respond, but Tom, 5 points, first window done. How are you feeling right now?
So when we talked last on our podcast before the El Salvador game, I said that I wanted 7 points, but I could be convinced to be happy with 5. Now I can't even be convinced to be happy with 5. I'm relieved that we got 5 and we're on track. It feels like we need to be winning more games and picking up more points than we are. And I just am not thrilled with the way this window went, especially given that the performances were poor. If we had played well and not gotten the results, then sure, that happens. But we didn't play well in any of the 3 matches except the second half against Honduras, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, Ryan, how about you?
Can meh be a feeling of how I feel about this whole window?
A Stone 8 agrees with you. Says 5 points is C. A C for satisfactory.
It's bare minimum.
It is, but I mean, really, out of 270 minutes, I think we can hang our hats on 45 of it. And so, if you're looking at it from the whole window, 45 good minutes out of 270, not good enough. The 5 points, sure, I think we're lucky to be in the position that we're in. It could have definitely been a whole lot worse, and I think we're all feeling Armageddon at halftime. But we salvaged 3 out of tonight. That kind of saves the window. I really think it saves Greg's job, but I will be just as nervous going up against Jamaica as I was going into tonight's game. I haven't necessarily built any faith in Greg because of this.
Yeah, 5 was bare minimum, and we saved disaster, but in my mind, looking at the full picture, this was our easiest window by far. We didn't play Mexico, we didn't play Jamaica, we didn't play Costa Rica. We played two of the easier opponents. We had Canada at home, and we got 5 points out of that. That doesn't, to your point, Ryan, I don't have any confidence going into this next window having to start playing tougher opponents. We still have those away games at Mexico, at Jamaica, at Costa Rica. We have them at home as well. But how do we know with our performance against Canada at home that it's going to look any better? I think a lot of you guys that are sending chats in completely agree. It's about how we got those 5 points and not the 5 points versus everything else. If we don't
Yeah.
have that last 45 minutes, we're looking at 2 points. It could have, like, yes, very happy we scored 4. Very happy we turned it around. That Honduras started to look tired and we overcame that. But if they held on, if they'd bunkered, if we couldn't break that low block, we could have been looking at 2 points, and this could have been a much sadder conversation that we're having.
Yeah, and also to add on, don't sleep on Panama, man. Panama actually looked pretty good this window too. So we came into this thinking we were just going to walk through qualifying after the summer we had, and hopefully this is a wake-up call for everybody on the team.
Yeah, I looking at this from just a math perspective, if we're winning every game 1-0 on the backs of these boring possession-based windows where we're not getting a whole lot of chances out of any match we play, we're just sort of sitting and trying to get 70% possession. It's a lot of variance in results. And we used up a lot of our luck this summer. So it was bound to start going against us at some point, and it just happened to hit at the worst time. So we've got to find a way to fix that, and fast, because if we keep playing like that, you have to get consistent results in World Cup qualifying. You can't allow statistical variance to dominate anything.
Yeah,
Sorry
I do want to pat ourselves. No, I do want to pat ourselves on the back a little bit because we try and be a very positive and optimistic podcast, a channel. Like, everything needs to be put in perspective. After the group games in the Gold Cup, you and I, Tom, were saying these results are coming, but the performances are very worrying. The performances then against Qatar, against Jamaica, I think, none of those gave you additional confidence that we would be going anywhere, and we were kind of lucky to hang 2 up on on Mexico over the summer. Okay, so before we have one last question, which I would like to be, if Greg is out, who would be the coach, realistic and then dream that you would want to come in. Before we get to that, I think that this question from Ken is really interesting. How would you describe our playing style right now?
Do we have a playing style?
Good answer.
Is ball playing center backs playing the ball to the other center backs a play style?
Yeah, I think Greg really needs to figure that one out. He talked about in his initial press conference when he first became the coach that he was going to change the way that the world looks at American soccer, and we were going to create numerical advantages by moving the ball around and making good off the ball runs. Tonight, 10 minutes into the game, you could see people just walking all over the place. Granted, I know it's been a long window, and I know these guys are exhausted at this point, and it's been a lot of travel, and there's a lot of heavy legs out there. But tonight, I would say even in the second half, you saw a glimpse of what Greg wants to do with the switching of play and opening up the wings, so therefore we can create those numerical advantages, moving the ball side to side. But as of right now, what drives me nuts is Greg's desire to fit the players to his tactics rather than the tactics to his players. And his inability to do that may be a telling sign of, some limitations that he has on as a coach. He still really enjoys that kind of a little bit of an old school style of soccer, call it late 90s, early 2000s, of moving the ball around, playing that quick one touching to open up space. But in the modern game, athleticism definitely plays a bigger role. I know that might be kind of an American way of looking at it, but I really think if you look at some of the better teams at the club level and even internationally, they're playing a high press. They're using their athleticism to create advantages for themselves. So Greg's got to do some growing, and if we can continue with his style of play, it's going to require a lot more work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I think that the biggest problems right now are our glaring hole in the center of the field. The midfield has been awful in pretty much every game under Berhalter. We cannot dominate the midfield and just keep getting run over. And that's not going to win you games against good teams and not going to give you comfortable wins against bad teams. Also, why are we so bad on the counterattack?
Terrible.
We have amazing players. Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Brendan Aronson. These guys shouldn't look this bad on the counterattack, right?
I think that's down to the coach, though. Like the meta of soccer has shifted. We're not in to this comment. I think both of you were talking about it. We're not in a game that revolves around tiki taka anymore. The game of modern soccer has adjusted to respond to tiki taka, to quick passing, to quick switching, to be a high press game, and that was in response to how we're playing now. So we now have a coach that specifically coaches to a club mentality, I think, of, hey, I'm going to have every day with these guys for 6 days a week for 30 weeks out of the year, and I'm going to be able to train them to play a specific way. That's not how you can coach an international team. There, you have so few chances every year to get together with that team, to implement a strategy, to implement a mentality. And that's my kind of biggest standing issue with Greg right now, is he's not getting the best out of his players. He's not setting the players up in a way that they're comfortable to play. And we go out and we look like it's the first 10 or 15 minutes against Honduras. I mean, yes, we played a good 45 minutes, but so what's that? 235 minutes throughout this window that we've looked completely clueless. And I think that is kind of insufferable as a fan.
Yeah, it's hard to stomach club level coaching tactics for an international team when it's very clear that our players don't fit the system. Weston McKenzie shouldn't be asked to play on basically on line with the striker. We shouldn't be forcing Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna into this like passing combination style play when they're both direct dribbling attackers. Like it's maddening to watch, and I hate watching it sometimes. Also, meaningless possession pisses me off more than anything else in soccer.
We didn't even have possession. The first half, I think it was like 55% possession to Honduras. So yes, it's meaningless, but we didn't even have that. So Ryan, I know you do have to get to work soon. I want to ask you guys one more question, which is, if Greg is not the coach, who comes in? Guys, if you're watching right now, drop in the chat who you would want as coach. But Ryan, maybe let's start with you. Who's your pick for coaching the U.S. men's national team if Greg isn't there?
I mean, I think the dream pick right now, the number one person out there is going to be Conte. Everybody's, I think, going to want to see that. He's been on big stages. He's won big games, but also too, he's an outsider. I think everybody's tired of seeing just the typical cronyism that we see within U.S. Soccer Federation. So to bring in someone from outside, kind of similar to the way Jurgen was, to come in and frankly tell people that, these things that we're doing aren't good enough. I think there are a couple MLS guys that could be warranted, but I don't think that's what we need to see right now. It's got to be Conte.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Conte is the best dream case scenario for us, that we could get someone like that to come in and shake things up. Realistically, I think we have to look at MLS, especially someone who's going to be familiar with our player pool, given we would have to do it fast and get someone who could get going instantaneously. I think that would have to be either Brian Schmetzer or Jim Curtin.
Yeah. How about Oscar Pareja?
I would take that.
How about Tab Ramos?
No.
I know Houston hasn't been doing well, but just his experience with the Federation, and he kind of went out with a bang with the Federation anyway, so I don't think it's possible. I just wanted to throw that name out there.
The thing for me is you need to have confidence that they're a higher caliber coach than Greg. I think, Tab Ramos is probably a better coach all told than Greg and could probably manage the national team better, but I don't have enough confidence to completely shake up the team and the camp all the way through World Cup qualifying. I think Conte is obviously levels better. I think Jim Curtin is levels better. Schmetzer is levels better. And you can kind of have confidence that you are getting something from that. I saw some other comments. Frank Lampard is an option. Farka from Norwich, he's had a really good run there. Curtin, overrated. We'll see. We'll see.
Let me throw a name out there, Lucien
Yeah.
Favre.
Yeah, I think even
Or
Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe's
he doesn't
available.
speak English. Zinedine Zidane is not managing a national team right now.
That'd be amazing. I'd love it.
Arsene Wenger, if we're going dream hires.
The thing that would worry me about Wenger, though, is kind of the same problems that we see with Greg. Just he would want that ticky-tacky style, the beautiful, early 2000s and late 90s of Arsenal, and we just don't have enough time to put that together. So
Yeah.
I liked Wenger, and I loved watching Arsenal in the early 2000s and late 90s. But God, what a dumpster fire to watch now.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Is Greg staying with the team?
Yeah.
What's your take?
Take it, Tom.
Yeah, he is. He is. I said at the after Canada that as much as I wanted him gone, he was going to get till the end of October, and it would take being sub 10 points by October to get rid of him. But they clearly are planning to ride him out until it becomes abundantly clear that they can't do it. So with this, he gets 5 more points from the next window. We'll see him throughout qualifying.
Yeah, Ryan,
Yeah, I'd agree.
How do you feel?
I would agree. I don't think he's going anywhere. But we do have to tip our hat a little bit. He saved his job tonight. He saved his job at halftime, because if we would have walked out of Honduras with, I think, even 1 point, he's gone. A loss, obviously gone. So he stepped up, and I say it hesitantly, but he did make the right decisions tonight for 45 minutes. But overall, going into the next window, I think the expectation should, if we're doing the whole win home and tie away, then the expectation needs to be 7 points out of the next window.
Yeah. It's tough. He did save his job. I think we need to be objective as well, as much as we might feel our feelings towards Greg and wanting him out. The last 45 minutes probably did do enough for him to be there going forward. So guys, wrapping up, any final thoughts going into the club window? We'll be back in October for the next round of World Cup qualifying matches. What are you left with? How are you feeling moving away from the Honduras game?
Moving away, I'll feel good for the rest of the day, because to ride the roller coaster of feeling so low at halftime and to walk out with 3 points, again, I think that's the reason we love the game. Things that I want to see out of or between now and the October window, I want to see Richards getting regular minutes at Hoffenheim. That's one of the big things. I want to see Musa getting healthy. I want to see Gio back to health. And then when we come to the next window, Greg actually playing Gio as an 8. Christian, I don't know how bad the knock was tonight. He looked like he was in a lot of pain, so hopefully nothing too serious. And then besides that, I'm still going to keep banging the drum for Julian Green. I want to see Greutz is going to have a tough time, definitely in the Bundesliga. He's going to be scraping the barrel there, but he's a guy that has some experience and he can actually advance the ball through the midfield. So those are the things that I want to see out of the next or between now and the October window.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to be frustrated by this window. Especially having been at one of the matches and been very disappointed by this performance I saw. It's going to take a lot to sort of get this one out of my mind, but hopefully we start to get players getting healthy. We're going to need Dest. We're going to need Reyna and Pulisic. Hopefully Mckenzie gets his head right and can come in being a little bit more professional next window. If not, then we're going to have to start seeing the kids step up. We'll have to see De La Torre, Green. We'll have to see Richards come in and play well. Hopefully he starts getting some minutes. Buyo is another one that I want to see getting more minutes and playing well. There are options, and I think we're going to have to use them to be successful in this campaign. So we better start watching out to see who's performing and who deserves that next call-up. We've talked about before, I don't think we see more than 18 players on each roster who are the same. So who's earning that next call-up is going to be a huge question.
Yeah, I think it'll help now that the transfer window has closed, that all of the club teams are kind of locked in for a lot of those players. Maybe even like a Matt Miazga, for example, could solidify his position in La Liga and come in and be maybe the third or fourth center back. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's crazy. We've had like 40 people at points, all the chats and questions. Thank you so much for tuning in. We can all be happy a little bit. Just give yourself a little bit of joy. Allow yourself a little bit of joy after the U.S. hangs 4 on Honduras in San Pedro Sula. And until next time, we will see you. Check out Yanks Go Talking, the U.S. Soccer podcast. We'll have a new episode out in the next few days with all 3 of us, actually, with Ryan being a special guest as well. Thanks, everyone, and I hope you have a great sleep. I know it's late in the U.S. right now. We'll see you next time.